Jesus is all about freedom. He's about bringing and releasing freedom into people's lives, young and old. He's always been that way. He wants people to walk in their freedom. He wants people to walk in their inheritance, what Jesus has already provided for them. And so many times, the body of Christ, we find ourselves walking in places that it's almost like we're dragging things behind us. We're dragging our past. We're dragging our issues. We're dragging our addictions. Sometimes we're dragging our trauma. Sometimes we're dragging our shame, and we're dragging our guilt. And Jesus says, it's enough. It's time to cut those off. It's time to get rid of those things in your life. That's what freedom is. The problem is so many people don't understand what freedom is and what it looks like and how to get there. And we kind of live in this normal when it's really not normal because we don't have peace and we don't have joy. We don't have all the things that Jesus said. Today I want to introduce some ladies to you. And first, Angie's going to come up and talk about, we have a great new ministry, and this ministry is impacting women right now. It's going to men eventually, but it's impacting women. And we want to introduce this new ministry to you because it has such a great ability or potential to be released into people's lives. And so, Ange, come on up and share a little bit about what this ministry is, how it got started. And then you're going to meet some people who walked through it the very first time, and their story of freedom is just going to touch you and bless you this morning.
So we're calling this the Journey to Freedom Wilderness Edition for women. And I messed the title up the first time, but I actually said the wrong thing. So this is the official name. It's basically backpacking. So it's a sport that I love. I'm passionate about. And I've
Is
been
backpacking
doing.
a sport? Really?
I call it a sport. I don't know.
Okay.
You have to train for it, and
It's like
it has
cornhole.
it has a
Cornhole's
goal.
sport, right?
There's a goal. It's to survive.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Do it wrong, you don't live. That's pretty.
We don't want to scare people off, but
No,
there is
no.
an element of danger involved. But so it's basically backpacking. We're taking women through the Journey to Freedom process while backpacking. And if you don't know, backpacking involves carrying everything you need on your back. Tents, food, water, some type of clothing, and anything else that you might need for 3 days.
Clothing is good.
So it kind of came about last year. I was backpacking in Colorado with a group of friends, and I just had a thought, wouldn't it be great to do freedom ministries while we're backpacking? Because it's an environment where you're out of your comfort zone, but it's a good thing. You get to see all these great places that you wouldn't normally see in a car. And it's just, you're unplugged, you're out in the middle of nowhere, and it's just a different experience, and you'll hear more about it from these ladies. But so I just had that thought, and the cool thing about God is that he takes the things we're passionate about, and he takes them and uses them for the kingdom. So I'm passionate about backpacking, and it just all seemed to come together. We have outfitted all these ladies with all the gear they need. It's basically the only thing they have to bring along is themselves and their hiking boots. So they get to basically try out backpacking and get a taste for it, and then also do all this great freedom stuff at the same time.
Good. So Janie's going to come and share a little bit about what the Freedom Ministry looks like, what it is, and then we're going to hear from our ladies who walked through it for the very first time out in the middle of nowhere.
Out in the middle of nowhere. Can't be beaten. It's wonderful, actually. So as Ange said, last summer we were on a backpacking trip and started talking about this, and wouldn't this be great? And because you're kind of left with yourself, those you are with, and God. So that's the setting for a backpacking trip. Thought we kind of laughed about it. Actually, thought, nah, this is kind of crazy. But anything's possible when it comes to God, right? So this has been born, and we took the first group of ladies on the trip in July. So there was 4. It's a small group. All the Freedom Weekends are small groups. So there were 4 of them, and they walked through the process. And I'll explain a little bit about the process, which is basically, first part of it is looking at what happened in my life. How did I get here? How did I become the person that I am today? And you look at that, and probably, like most of us, you can identify places in your life that you aren't very proud of, pleased with, parts that harm and hurt other people and hurt yourself. So we look at that aspect, and Jesus shows up. It's amazing. He just shows up and he starts to heal. When we're hurt like that, we develop lies about ourselves, about the world, and about who God is. And we live those lies, and by living those lies, it changes our destiny from God's destiny for us to the destiny of the enemy. So we start to tear down the lies, we tear down the strongholds, start to declare truth of who we really are, and so we start to walk in this new place of freedom of who am I really? Who did God create me to be? Big part of the weekend is forgiveness. So we come into these places of hurt, and we hang on to unforgiveness, and maybe we hang on to guilt or shame or resentment, whatever it is. But we go through the process of releasing the people that have hurt us, releasing ourselves, and walking into this place. We have to remember, forgiveness is about you. It's not about the persons or things that have hurt you or traumatized you in your life. Freedom is all about you. And once you can really have revelation around that, you really start to feel the release and the freedom that comes from only Jesus. So that's the process of the weekend. Most weekends, so here's the good news for those of you who are saying, why would I want to backpack? Here's the good news. Most of our weekends are held at the Fox. We're going to get him on one, I'm telling you. Maybe he'll lead the men's. I
may make it in, I may never make it out.
Oh dear. We have not made provision for that. So they're held at Foxborough. Bed and breakfast, Friday night to Sunday afternoon, where you are pampered and loved and well-fed and have all the niceties of life. So we invite you to that. We have one almost every month. About 2 years ago, Alan said, I really think you're going to be having one of these a month. And it's at least that, and sometimes there's 2 a month. There's a men's weekend going on right now. And so it's knowing where they're at. They've already walked through the process, and they're at a place of surrender in their life. They're saying to God, I'm laying this down, and I'm giving you my life. And they are really walking in a new place in their life with freedom. So we just really invite you. The next available weekend, actually we have 2 weekends for women, but they're full. And I bring that up because if you're interested, please don't wait to the last minute to try to register. The next weekend for women is in November. So there are open spots for that. So if you're interested, women, please see me. There's brochures, registration out on the table by the library. Pick one of those up, give me a call, we'll talk about it. Next one for men is not until January. January, there's also a young women's weekend where it's young women 16 to 20, 22 years old. We are planning for the first time next summer a young men's weekend. So it's growing, it's building. There's a weekend almost every month. So if you're interested, please reach out to me. Arden can help as well. So let's hear from the ladies.
Yeah.
And hear their testimonies.
Good. So come on up, ladies. These were our first ladies who went through the very first backpacking freedom weekend. And they have some great stories, and they have some great testimonies. There's not a testimony without a what? A test. And so they went through a test to arrive at their testimony. And the neat part about this is not just it was the very first one, but most of them will tell you that maybe they didn't want to necessarily go, but they were there, and God did something. And here's the thing. You may be sitting there and you're like, I don't need freedom. Well, sometimes we believe that, but when you start digging, you discover there's something in your life that's kind of an obstacle that's holding you back, right? Well, these ladies discovered that. And so, Shannon, why don't you start and tell a little about yourself and then how you got on the weekend to start with.
Okay. My name's Shannon Pyle. I'm married to Kevin, and we live in Mount Pleasant Mills. And originally, I was doing some counseling work with Janie, and she had mentioned during a freedom weekend, and I agreed, and then COVID hit, so my weekend got canceled. And I was like, yes, I'm out of this. I don't have to do it. But one thing about God is he'll come back around. And so we were together, our families were sister-in-laws. We were together, and Alexa had mentioned to me, hey, do you want to go on this backpacking trip, this freedom weekend? And I thought, oh, okay, well, I did tell Janie that I would go. So maybe, yeah. And then she said, oh, and by the way, Ange has a pair of hiking boots. What's your size? And I said, I wear a size 7. She goes, well, that's what size the boots are. So obviously God had arranged this weekend and had it all planned out for me.
Yeah. So you got there, you went to the weekend. So what did you discover about yourself? What did you discover as you went through the process? What did you discover about the freedom that you needed?
So the very first day that we got there, we hiked in and we dropped our packs, and they said, okay, now here's a little book for you to go out and figure out exactly, what are you here for? And so I went out into this, it was a clearing. It was so beautiful, and the sun was shining, and I was sitting on this rock and just started talking to God, and he said, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. And I was like, no, we're not going there. We're not talking about that. I don't want to talk about that. And so I sat there for a little bit and argued about what we were going to address, and God kept coming back to the same thing. So I wrote it in my book that we were given, and then all night I pleaded with God to change the path that we were on. I did not want to address these things. I sure as heck didn't want to tell somebody that I had just met what was going on, because I liked to just keep it hidden. But I needed to address some things, some unforgiveness and some bitterness in my life that I had held on to.
Mm-hmm. So as you walked through that process, what did you discover on the other side of that? As you were honest and open with God, and that's really what it is. It's being honest and open with God. Because you can try to hide things, right? And that's only going to work for so long, because God finally gets around to it. And the neat thing with God is you may think you're focused on something, and God has another issue somewhere else that is really the underlying issue or the cause of something or the root of something, and he'll take you there and deal with that first. You think it's this issue, but it's really this issue, and that's what you kind of discovered.
Yeah, and I always said, I kind of walked around with a mask on. I just thought, if I just keep hiding this from everybody, if I act like everything's fine, it will be fine, right? And that wasn't the case at all. Those things that I was holding on to were coming out in ways that it was negative towards my family and certain people, and so I needed to get rid of that. So just releasing those things, getting rid of them, forgiving people, myself was a really hard one, and just letting go. It really gave you this freedom, that you just let things go in a way that I never knew that I could.
Yeah. And what you discover, obviously, freedom is not just a one thing and done, right? You go to a weekend, oh, I'm free now. I mean, that's the beginning, right? Yeah. It's a journey. Mm-hmm. So talk about that briefly. Just what is it from then, a couple months ago, to now? What does that look like in your life?
One thing about these Journey to Freedom weekends, and like he said, it's not just a one and done, is the women that go along with you, you get closer. And Janie, I always think of her as like my spiritual mom. She helps you and guides you. So it's not that you go through this and then you're done. You have a group that will then come and talk to you. They tell you that they're praying for you. So you know then that just by opening up, it's not like they leave and are talking about you or what happened. It's really this camaraderie that happens, and then you have women that are there for you to walk beside you.
Good. So helping you be accountable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Dori, welcome. Tell us about yourself, a little bit, where you come from.
Hey, I'm Dori Horst. I got married last September, so I'm...
And your husband's happy about that?
I think so.
You think so? We'll ask him later.
Yeah. I have Mennonite background, so a lot of my story, I guess, is just really finding out who God is, how much you, just really having a relationship with Him, I guess. Yeah, it's not about what you do. It's not about pleasing Him and the things you do, but just having a relationship with Him, having a heart for Him.
As you started out your weekend, it wasn't something necessarily you wanted to do.
No. The backpacking sounded fun to me. I wanted to do that. But yeah, I had texted Janie about it and asked if there's any openings, and she said it was booked full. So I was good. I guess I got out of that one. Same as Shannon. And then she texted me about a week and a half, 2 weeks before, and she said there's an opening if I want to go. So I said yes.
Okay. So as you walk through the weekend, What was something that stood out to you? What was something that God kind of highlighted in you that you knew you had to work at, that you knew you had to face, kind of obstacle or whatever it was, that God kind of pulled out of you to bring you to that point of freedom?
I mean, I had a lot in my past, a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, unforgiveness, stuff that I just tried to cover up and move on, that I didn't realize were still in my way of what God has for me. I know he has plans for me, but to actually get all that junk out of my road so I can move on and actually do what he asked, what he called me to do.
That's a great way of saying it, isn't it? There's stuff within our lives sometimes if we don't deal with, they become obstacles to our future. Don't let your past rob you of your future. But that's what so many people do. So many followers of Jesus wonder why they don't hear his voice, why they don't sense his presence. It's because there's something that's there. There's something they haven't dealt with, whether it's unforgiveness or your past. And God brought you guys to that point. What would you say for those sitting out here today? You're just like, well, I'm not sure I can go through that.
I mean, like I said, just go for it. But God always has a plan for you, and it's not, your past doesn't define you. It doesn't have to if you just let him change your future. But he's got a plan for everybody if they're willing to listen.
It's good. Thank you. Alexa, you were the one who probably would be like, how can we say this? Backpacking, no. Tell us a little bit about that.
Ange is a good friend of mine, and she knew that I was seeking a freedom weekend. I was kind of thinking like in a cabin somewhere, with all my clean clothes and toilets. But so I said no, and she said pray about it with a smirk, if you know Ange. And I was like, I will. In my head, I was like, do I want to? Because what if I get a response and I don't really want to hear? And I prayed about it, and I knew I was supposed to go. I was supposed to go on this trip, and I didn't tell Ange for a while, and I was like, okay, let me see if my friend Nikki will go with me. If she goes with, because then it'll be like a security blanket, like somebody's there with me experiencing these things with me. Well, she was then going to go, and then she couldn't go, and I was still going. So that's how God works, taking the security blanket away. So I went, and
So you find yourself in the middle of the woods.
Yep.
And so God had to strip away some things. What did he begin to strip away when you were in the middle of the woods?
Well, he revealed to me, which is something I didn't even see in myself, and it was kind of hard to receive it. I was sitting around the fire, and I remember telling the girls, like, it's really hard for me to sit here with no makeup on. My hair has been in the same bun. My clothes, I'm pretty sure I wore them yesterday. Like, it was just really hard, and I was kind of ashamed. I was like, why is this bothering me so much? So I feel like he was telling me, like, the mask that you've been wearing, the face and hey, I am who I am. I'm a cosmetologist. I love that stuff, but it was too important to me. And God revealed that, those things aren't as important as I made them out to be. And so I've actually, since the Freedom Weekend, been wearing my natural hair more often. And actually, every time I wear my natural hair and my hair down, everybody's like, wow, your hair looks really nice like that. Is that yours? I'm like, yes, that's mine.
I don't know how people wear other people's hair, but I guess.
And for the first time, I went to work with no makeup on, which I don't know if I need to do that all the time, but I did it, and I was okay. So that was a step for me.
Yeah. And you know what? You may be sitting there going like, oh, come on. But all of us have that. Something, right? It may not be our makeup, it may not be our hair, but there's something about us that we hold on to thinking that's what makes us, or that's what defines us, or that's something that we are identified by, whatever it is. And sometimes God has to point your finger at it and go like, that has to go, because it becomes an obstacle.
Yeah.
So what else did you find out as you walked through the weekend?
One morning that stuck out to me, like when we were told that we were going to give testimonies, the first thing for me was during worship. One morning we were looking at this view. It was an amazing view of like mountains. And I just knew God was there. He was right next to me, like right in front of me. I just felt and sensed that he was there. And we were having this conversation. Like it was incredible. He was like, it's almost like a slideshow of my life. And he was showing me that in this situation, like I was there, but fear was between us. And in this situation, I was there, but fear was in between us. And so I've been praying, I want to hear you more. I want to have visions. I want to dream dreams. I want these things. Why am I not getting it? I mean, I was hearing, but I wasn't hearing to the point where I felt like I was supposed to be. And so he just revealed, like, fear has been a constant thing in between our relationship. And once I broke that off, walking out from the backpacking trip, I had my first vision, which was incredible. Like, I would hear about visions, and I'm like how, like, I didn't understand. Because if you don't experience it, you don't understand it. Right. And it was pretty incredible. It's been, it's not been easy after the weekend. Like, there's things like when you get a little bit of freedom, Satan likes to creep in, but it was a good weekend. It was really good.
Good. I like how she put it. Listen, all of us has something sometimes between God and him. Between us and God, there could be that something that's blocking, or that's something that's an obstacle for us to really fully understand him and see him and know him and experience him. And so my question is, what is in your life? And if there's something, it's time to deal with it. It's time to say enough is enough. I don't want to stay where I'm at. I don't want to stay caught up in my stuff. I want to find freedom, and I want to experience that, whatever that looks like. Because here's the problem. Too many of us begin to live like that's normal. In other words, you live with your past, or you live with your shame, or you live with your guilt, or you live with your addiction, thinking that's normal, when there's a whole nother side of freedom that's available to you, but you have to work for it, and you have to go for it. I mean, Jesus will meet you there, but you have to want it. You have to desire it. And so what would you say to everybody, sitting here going like, is it worth it? Is
Yes.
it how hard is it? And, I mean, what do I do?
I mean, I think if you'd ask my husband, he'd feel like he'd got a new wife out of it. Like, I feel like a different person. I look at situations differently. I handle situations differently. And I feel like that's like what freedom is. It may not be easy. It doesn't mean life's going to stop throwing curveballs and hard things. But
Right.
I feel equipped to handle it. And I go to God more in those situations, when before I would just make decisions on my own, or it's just been a thing that I needed. I needed to have the freedom in order to have a relationship with God. So
Yep.
It won't be my last trip. It's good.
Good. Well, thank you, ladies. What a great story. What a great testimony.